Welcome to the other side of life. I'm Will, and I hope you had a great weekend and a great Monday. All right, today we're going to be talking about radical acceptance. So we are going to need to do some journaling, something that I tell people to do all the time is you're going to need to do some writing. Hopefully you've already been doing some writing when you were putting your distraction therapy list, in here. When you were doing mindfulness exercises and you were doing meditations and focusing on that one object, whether it's the peacock feather or it's your remote control or a game control or whatever, you just focus on it, noticing things that you hadn't noticed before. You're writing down how it made you feel in your journal. Radical acceptance, definitely going to have to do some writing, all right? Now, radical acceptance is probably one of the things that reminds me of like the 12 steps of recovery most. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And give me the courage to change the things I can. And help me to have the wisdom to know the difference. All right? Because that's what this is all about. So this technique, radical acceptance, what's it all about? All right? Sometimes life situations hit us and we have no control over it. But sometimes we still hold on to that grudge or that resentment or the frustration of that life situation that hit us that really wasn't fair. All right? Now, I'm not talking about if you're in an abusive relationship and someone's constantly beating you up or throwing you around or insulting you. We're not supposed to sit back and just accept that. We need to call someone, get some help, get out of that situation until that situation can either get better or, we decide to move on with our lives and do something else. This is the stuff I'm talking about that affects me personally. So I'll use, for example, the weather. Weather around here has been ridiculous. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's snowing, and it's June, okay? So with radical acceptance, I'm going to write down in my journal what was the thing that happened that's upsetting me. What was my role in the situation? Did I have any control over it whatsoever? What was my response to the situation? How did my response affect my thoughts and my feelings? And how could the situation have occurred differently? All right, so I decided I wanted to use weather because we all complain about the weather. And if you've planned something great for the summer and it rains, it can ruin your whole trip and you're bummed out. So I'm going to say what happened, and it was the weather. What was my role in it? I didn't have any role in it. I can't control the weather yet. What was my response? Now, this is what was tricky for me in the past. Sometimes, if I was upset, I'd go to the liquor store and get a bottle or do something that I thought was fun but self-destructive. Now, you can change that response by doing something positive, all right? But sometimes back in the past, I did things that were destructive and made the situation even worse. So how did my response to the situation affect my thoughts and my feelings? Well, if I got drunk and did a whole bunch of stupid stuff, what happens? Usually I start feeling bad about myself, get down on myself, and then that just starts to spiral back into depression, back into the feelings of worthlessness, and it just escalates from there. How could the situation have occurred differently? Hey, it's raining outside, so I'm going to play board games with the wife and kids. We're going to play Monopoly, or we're going to play Life, or I'm going to play video games, or we're going to go to the movies, or going to do something, just change the plans. Radical acceptance also works towards the feelings I'm struggling with inside. Maybe I made some poor choices because the weather was bad, or I got in an argument with my spouse or something, and I start beating myself up. I should have done that differently. I should have done, shouldn't have overreacted. Well, radical acceptance is accepting my behavior too, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's not about judgment. It's not about tearing yourself down, because people that get trapped in that cycle of depression, the one thing that I did over and over again was just tear myself down because I couldn't let go of making a piss poor decision or whatever. So what are some things that maybe have happened in your life that you're struggling with? You need to accept it. Is there a way that you can let it go? Have that courage to accept the things that you can change and to know the things that you can't change, all right? I can change the way I respond to the situations around me, but I can't change other people, places, or things. You just don't have the power. As much as we like to think we do, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how charismatic you are, you can't change people, places, or things. Just like trying to change the weather. That's why I use that one as an example, because it always ticks me off, because I don't like snow, and yet I live up here in the north. Give me a break. So write down, what happened? What was the role in the situation? What was your response? How did your response affect your thoughts and your feelings? And how could you have dealt with the situation differently? All right, I encourage you to go to Amazon, get the DBT workbook. It breaks down a lot of these techniques and gives you different examples, situations to practice working on, because the thing is, you have to practice working on these skills. You can't just go, okay, I want to write down some things that I radically accept. my father walking out on me or something like that. I'm going to write that down and how I could have dealt with the situation differently if you dealt with it in a negative way. These are skills you have to practice because something else is going to come up that's going to set you off. And you want to learn to respond to those things differently. And in part of those, practicing those skills, next week we are going to talk about opposite action. Because opposite action and radical acceptance, they go hand in hand. So, your homework is going to be to go over a couple issues that you need to radically accept, all right? Now, you can start with some simple ones. Something silly. The time my brother broke my transformer when we were little kids, and I've resented him ever since because I bought it with my hard-earned money. He knows this is true. It was Megatron, all right? So it could be something silly like that, Did I let it go? How did I respond? Did I beat my brother up? I wanted to. So start with maybe a simple one and go to the hard ones. If you start having any type of triggers or anything, go back to your list, your distraction therapy list, and go, what's on your list? Drawing, running, whatever, playing your piano, watching a movie. And then come back to this radical acceptance and start practicing doing this skill so that when life hits you in the future, you know how to deal with it. All right? And remember, we're not here to accept, I'm not saying you need to accept any being in an abusive situation or being abused, being called names or anything like that. You need to get to a safe place and take care of yourself. And at the same time, don't be beating yourself up because you stayed in a bad situation for too long. You need to radically accept you did the things you did because you didn't feel you had any alternative. All right? This radical acceptance is about not judging the situation, not judging ourselves. It's just dealing with life on life's terms, okay? Next week, we'll be talking about opposite action. One of my favorite ones. This one was the one that revolutionized my depression. So I hope you have a great day. Do the homework, and I'll see you next time on the other side of life.